Fellow Toastmasters, what is a meeting if we did not have our officers? They go behind the scenes and do everything for us so that our meetings flow as smoothly as they possibly can. If not, sometimes we have the, can you do this role? Can you do that role? So that's a failing on my part as a VPE, and I'll talk about that later. So we have 7 officer roles. There you go. The first one being the president. No, they are not drunk with power, as some presidents in the past in the United States have been, not naming any names, but they are essentially the one that the head either is brought up or rolls. If you look at corporations, the CEO is usually given a golden parachute because if there is a leadership failure, the one that they're going to fire is usually the CEO, even though the CEO probably has nothing to do with the problem of the company. So the overall success of the club or success of the corporation is the CEO or the president, and the failures go back to the president and CEO. They assist the other officers in their role. So if there is a role that is missing that day, for instance, the Sergeant of Arms is not there, the president takes up that role. They hold executive meetings. So once a month or once every 2 weeks or once every week, depending on the cadence that the president decides, they will hold an executive meeting with all the officers to basically discuss plans, how to move forward, what we need to do, what we need to change, that kind of stuff. They also represent the club in the area, the district, and the district meetings. So if we think about the club, we have our members, and then we have about 3 to 4 or 5 clubs in an area, and that's usually geographically situated, though depending on the district, that may not be the case. Then you have a division which houses 3 to 4 areas, and then you have the district, which is, think about it like a state. For South Carolina, it is the state of South Carolina. We are in division or District 58. And we fall under Division A, and we are Area 24. This is great because we at least are geographically situated in the state, but there are other districts that have multiple states in them. I know like there's a Florida, Alabama, and Georgia are all within the same district. So when they have district meetings, they're driving from a lot of different locations. And then they also close out the club meetings. The Vice President of Education. So who knew here that the Vice President of the United States has an actual seal? So I'm showcasing the corresponding seals of the US to the right, because I was thinking, let's make it a little bit more interesting and showcase that almost every single position has their own seal. And this is the programming. So what Edith basically said, who's going to be the evaluator, who's going to be the grammarian, who's going to be all these different roles, that's supposed to be my job. I'm supposed to define that. And if you cannot make the meeting, then you're supposed to be letting me know so that I can change it. I have been a little AWOL because I've been working on trying to do a lot of other things. So I am very grateful that Edith has stepped up and taken that little role from me a little bit. The VPE is the second in command. It does require an indomitable personality as well as a lot of patience, timing, and planning. You're basically creating the education for the team, for the club, where you basically say, hey, Donna, have you done your speeches lately? Because I haven't seen a speech, and I'm calling you out, sorry. I shouldn't be doing that in public, but you need to be doing some speeches. Let's talk after the meeting so we can get some more speeches for you into the system. And basically bringing up Edith, who completed her DTM today. And also saying, Danny, just because you're the president, you also need to give some speeches from time to time. So that's kind of what the VPE does, and that you basically try to get speeches for your club and for the choice. We also represent the club in the area, division, and district meetings. And so what that looks like for the president and for the VPE is we attend the meetings when they call us onto the meetings. And then towards the end of the year, we are voting members for who represents the area, division, and district. I ran as an area director for a small stint as a division director earlier this year. And essentially it was fun because you learn a lot more than just working at a club level. You get to do a lot more things. And then again, we are the second ranking officer, so if the president is absent, we assume the role as president. And what Edith is currently right now is the vice president of membership. Basically, she has to create the strategy of trying to recruit new members, bring them on, make sure that they get into our system, and try to see if we can meet our goals. So our goal is 20 this year, hence the point of what's the base and what does that mean? Then we have to greet new members at the beginning and then invite them to join at the end. So Edith, if you're, we'll be talking to new members or prospective new members at the end of the meeting to see how you felt about the meeting, things that you liked, and things that basically plan your future goals for your membership in the club and what you're looking out of this club. Then she will send off the membership applications with the fees to Toastmasters International. We have a club fee, and that helps us with equipment. But we also have the international fees that you have to pay regardless whether you're in this club or in another club. Some clubs don't charge fees, but they don't have the extra perks that our club does. And we have the VPPR, Public Relations. That's basically setting up and maintaining the club website. Danny is doing a great job with the Toast Host website through WordPress, and also helps to publicize the club through local communities, tries to create a regular club newsletter. Again, the VPPR role is unique to the person's skill set. You don't have to do all of this. You make the role your own, but these are usually things that the role has to offer. And now we're going to change into the treasurer. So this is the Treasury seal. So the American Treasury has this kind of seal. And then we talk about one of my least favorite roles. I do not like handling other people's money. I love talking about money. I love to help people with their money. I deal with my own money, but I don't want to be touching anybody else's money. So here you're basically collecting the semi-annual fees. If the club does that, I think we move to annual fees. So if you do join up, you pay the annual fee, and also the club fees as well as the international fees. So that's about $90 annually, plus our club fees, I think it was $16 on top of that. And then they have access to the club bank account, and they basically collect money usually either through checks, Venmo, or credit card. And they let the president and VPM know who has paid and who has not paid. And they basically are the accountants of the team, so they keep a ledger and make sure they say, okay, we have this much money in our budget. If we do have events and we want to buy for food, or we want to buy equipment like ribbons or a banner stand or something like that, they basically say, can we afford it? Can we not afford it? And they're basically the ones that say, yes, you can afford it. No, denied. If you've seen Susie Orman, you get that kind of joke. The secretary. So we have the Secretary of State, and that also has its own seal. They basically keep the minutes for the meetings. And Donna, I think you're the secretary, is that correct? And she's been doing a really great job, because at the end of the month, she sends out the meeting notice and the notes for that. And she basically maintains this as a record for the club. So she's been doing a really great job. I see the emails, and I want to say thank you for all you do, because it is very refreshing to get it in email format so that we have it on our own records. Then we have the Sergeant of Arms. The Sergeant of Arms doesn't necessarily have a seal, but they do have a Sergeant of Arms in Congress, and Congress does have a seal. So that's why I put the seal for Congress there. So the House and the Senate has a Sergeant of Arms, and if you haven't heard about the whole filibuster and all that kind of stuff that's going on with the Senate, you know that a lot of the roles that the Senate has, especially with the treasurer and all that kind of stuff, and the sergeant of arms, they're the ones that make sure that the Senate runs when it runs. And they are the ones that make sure that everything is flowing accordingly. And the parliamentarian is basically the one that makes sure that the rules are followed. Technically, Toastmasters is supposed to follow, it is at the club level, supposed to follow the Robert Rules of Order, and it's a very thick book. I just bought it. It's a little bit dry because it basically outlines how a club should run in order, but it usually starts to follow that order when you move up. And so the Sergeant of Arms kind of has to make sure that the room is in order, everything is set up, and kind of helps make sure that we follow the rules for the Robert Rules of Order, though at a club level, it's really not implemented that well. As you go up higher at the district level, it is implemented really well, and there's a separate role called the parliamentarian that does that. With that said, if you want more details of the rules as well as tools for you to move forward, I did put this on the chat. You can download it, click on that link if you become one of the officers for any of these roles because you thought it sounded very fun and entertaining. Please look at this because this is a very great resource for you. With that, I open the floor for questions before we do any of the nominations or elections. If you have any questions on any role, I open the floor.